This is Harsh Rules, I'm Ben Harsh, and today let's learn to play Conflict of Heroes, Guadalcanal. Conflict of Heroes, Guadalcanal was released in 2016 by Academy Games, and designed by Uwe Eickart, Gunther Eickart, and Dean Haley. This game supports up to 4 players and takes about 1 hour to play. This tutorial is a supplement to the first 3 parts that give you the game's basics. From here on out, we are going to discuss more advanced concepts you will encounter in the subsequent firefights. First, let's begin discussing the foundation of group actions with the concept of the shared activation. With shared activations, you chain fresh units together off of one activated unit's action points. To conduct this, in step 1, activate a fresh unit and move the action marker to the 7th space on the green track. Let's keep this first example simple. So let's say you move the 1st Marine squad ahead 1 space for 1 action point. Then let's say the next turn the Japanese player passes. So we're back to the US Marines' turn. The US Marine player declares they want to share the 1st Marine Rifle Squad's activation with the 2nd Marine Rifle Squad. This will chain the 2 units together on the same activation. The US player could then take an action with that 2nd unit. Therefore, with the most basic shared activation concept, you can then alternate between units. However, there is a catch. When sharing activations, those units must conduct their actions with only the default 7 action points of the first unit. And when those action points are expended, all the units in the chain are flipped over to spent. Once units have a shared activation and are in the same hex or adjacent to each other, then a player can conduct a group movement. Essentially, these units can now take a movement turn together. The additional catch here is that while you can now save action points and time by moving these chain units together, you must pay action point cost of the moving unit with the highest cost to move. Since these units are all of the same type, the cost would only be 1, but if a unit was traveling with them and that movement cost was 2, then it would cost the group 2 to move. Also, when group moving adjacent units, you must pay the highest cost of the terrain being moved into. Therefore, if one unit moves into light jungle and the other unit is in open terrain, you would pay the higher terrain cost for all. Also, when group moving, if a unit is split off from the main group, they can no longer move until the group is adjacent to that unit again. However, it's not required that all units must move together. Sometimes you may want to leave units behind as you move the main group forward. You can coordinate some complex maneuvers by using group moves, so keep these rules in mind for your next firefight. Movement is not the only group action that can be taken. There are several other group actions available, such as group attacks. To conduct a group attack, first establish which unit will be the group leader. With a group attack, only the leader's attack cost will be subtracted from the shared action point pool. However, each supporting unit in the group attack adds only +1 to the group leader's attack rating. Ultimately, the group leader will be conducting the attack, and other units will support them and add to their attack rating. Supporting units must have an attack rating greater than 0 to participate. Now, any units that wish to support the group leader must either be in the same hex as the group leader or the 6 surrounding hexes. Also, the target must be within the normal arc of fire. This rule applies to turreted units as well, and group attacks can only be conducted at normal range. Multiple units chained together within the same hex or contiguous hexes may also conduct other group actions such as the group rally. In this example, each unit would pay 5 action points, and then each unit would make their own dice roll to attempt to rally. There are several other actions that can be chained with a group action such as card actions, opportunity actions, and command actions, etc. However, just remember they must follow the same rules of proximity and share the same action point pool. Keep these rules in mind when you find yourself in tight spaces with multiple units. Once you're familiar with the concept of basic combat by playing an introductory firefight, you'll want to introduce advanced combat rules that put a greater emphasis on range. To illustrate these concepts, we're going to use a Japanese infantry unit. This infantry unit has a normal range of 5 hexes. With the full combat rules in effect, the distance to the target will provide positive and negative modifiers. For example, the Japanese infantry unit can attempt a long-range shot which is up to twice their normal range. However, long-range attacks affect their attack rating by a -2. And any target beyond double the unit's range rating is considered out of range and cannot even be attempted. Things get more interesting when we discuss short-range attacks. Attacks towards units in adjacent hexes are considered close range and increase the attacker's attack value by 3. Whenever opposing units occupy the same hex, then close combat can occur. Regardless of singular or group action, one enemy can be attacked via close combat per turn. Also, attacking units, especially weapon crews, may be handicapped in close combat encounters. This is indicated if their attack rating is in a white box. If a unit with white boxes attempts close combat, they will receive a -2 to their attack rating. All other units in close combat receive a +4 to their attack rating. And for calculating defense, units always use their flank defense rating in close combat. There is also an additional layer to the actual combat calculation to integrate into this as well. The basic formula is as follows. A unit's attack rating plus their dice roll is called the attack value. The defense rating plus any defense modifier such as cover or terrain is called the defense value. A hit is scored whenever the attack value meets or exceeds the target's defense value. However, if the attack value exceeds the defense value by 4 or more, then the attacker scores 2 hits. Now, most of the time, 2 hits means the unit is eliminated. But remember, the Japanese have no hit markers that can give them a reprieve from instant death, which can make fighting them even more frustrating for the US player. Adding these rules will add an additional layer of realism as well as additional strategies for your games. Alright, let's talk about cards. Conflict of Heroes Guadalcanal comes with a deck of 55 cards. Before we dive into the rules, first let's get acquainted with the layout of a card. There are 5 types of cards. The card type is identified by its respective icon in the upper left-hand corner. Card types include action, bonus, weapon, capability, and event. If there is a cost in action points or command action points, caps, to playing the card, this is shown on the middle left. And in the lower left, there is a card number that can be tied back to a firefight that tells you which cards to include in the deck. On the lower right may be specialty icons that are a reminder cue for additional rules that may be in play. Cards with the green circle and lightning bolt can only be played on their own as an independent action. Cards without this icon can be combined with other actions to augment them. Sometimes cards with the icon can have other cards added to them to enhance the effect. The purple circle with silhouette icon indicates that the card can be played as a group action with multiple units. And the explosion icon indicates high explosives. High explosives impact a unit as a flank defense value. In other words, that unit only can use its lowest defense value. Now let's look back at the 5 types of card icons at the top of the screen. These card types are integrated into a game in 2 ways. Action and bonus card types are the main cards used to create a deck. Occasionally, an event card will also be seeded into the deck as well, depending on the firefight. The remaining weapon, capability, and event cards may be assigned to units depending on the firefight setup rules. Most of the time, the firefight will require you to shuffle together a deck of specific cards. In our tutorial example, Go Edge's Patrol, there is an option to add a deck of cards. The key phrase to look for here is shuffle all action and bonus cards 2 through 5. This statement is a little misleading. Actually, you don't shuffle all the cards, and there are no bonus cards in this scenario. You merely include action cards 2 through 5. For example, in this firefight, the cards not used for building the game deck are often used as play reference for specific firefights. Let's take a look at firefight number 3, the meat grinder, and I'll show you some examples. Firefight number 3 uses a number of weapon cards and a capacity card in different ways. First, let's look at how firefights integrate weapon cards to specific units. Often, in regards to mortar crews, and with some guns, you will see extra munition options. In firefight number 3, the Japanese 81mm mortar crew has additional text that grants a smoke weapon card. Whenever a firefight adds a weapon card to a specific unit, it will show this in parentheses with the card number beneath the marker. Likewise, on the Marine unit listing, the mortar crew there has access to card 40 in parentheses. This allows that unit to use flares during the firefight. Further down on the Japanese description, there is a capacity card available if the Japanese player can maintain a positive Bushido score. On the US Marine side, there are 2 additional weapon cards that are used. The first card is an aerial attack that can be conducted once as an action during round 5. With the second card, the US Marines can call in an offboard artillery strike between every round. These are just a few examples of how these additional cards can be integrated into the firefights. Now, let's discuss vehicles. The good news about vehicles is that the general layout of the vehicle marker is nearly the same as the foot unit layout. The upper part of the marker is all about action cost and movement. Attack cost is on the left, movement cost is on the right, and facing is in the center. A new addition to this section is the concept of 360-degree turrets signified by the white circle around the attack cost, and bonus movement icons beneath the movement cost. We'll talk about both of these stats in just a moment. The lower half of the vehicle unit marker has stats in the same locations as before. Attack ratings are on the left, and defense ratings are on the right, with range in the center. The main difference in this section is to remember that vehicles have the blue defense ratings for armor. Therefore, remember to match the correct attack color with the correct defense color when mixing unit types. The main functional difference with vehicles is in regards to movement, so let's take a look at that next. Vehicles move differently from foot units with select advantages and disadvantages depending on the terrain. The first major advantage of vehicles is that many units have a bonus movement ability. This ability can be found as icons under the movement cost in the upper right-hand corner of the marker. Each blue icon equals 1 additional hex move in eligible terrain. Eligible terrain is typically clear terrain such as open terrain, paths, and kunai grass that allows the vehicle to move more quickly. Some terrain is much more difficult for vehicles to cross and may cost additional action or command action points to move into. Terrain such as surf, rivers, and swamps may also immobilize the vehicle. Essentially, you can get stuck, and entering this terrain requires a die roll to be safe. This is a simple roll of 2 dice. If the result is greater than or equal to 6, then the terrain is safe. A result of less than this, and the vehicle is immobilized. And finally, some terrain such as heavy jungle and steep terrain cannot be entered by vehicles at all. Some final notes on movement. Many tanks have a white circle under their attack cost in the upper left-hand corner of the marker. This often indicates that there is a turret that can swivel 360 degrees. Therefore, to attack targets out of that unit's normal firing arc, the player can pay an additional 2 action points or command action points to swivel and attack in a full 360 degrees. At this point, the additional rules you've learned from this tutorial should help you tackle the more advanced firefights in the game that utilize vehicles, cards, and require group actions. And that wraps up this episode of Conflict of Heroes Guadalcanal from Academy Games. Questions about this game, requests for future Harsh Rules tutorials, and constructive feedback are all greatly appreciated. Hit the like button and drop a line in the comments section. To be notified when future episodes of Harsh Rules become available, subscribe and click the bell icon. As always, I'm Ben Harsh for Harsh Rules. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next episode.